Today, we've got Dr. Leo with us, and Dr. Leo opened his chiropractic practice in Long Beach in 1986. He specializes in locating and correcting causes of health problems, and today he's here to give us a wonderful presentation on the essentials of health. So thank you, Dr. Leo. Take it over.
Thank you very much for having me here. This is fantastic. Welcome everybody who's here to see the presentation. I don't know how many are patients for chiropractic or ones that have never heard about chiropractic. I'm going to try to give some kind of an understanding about the body and understanding about health and how the body can, have the best health. A lot of people have different ideas about the perceptions of health, not being in pain, having good blood pressure, maybe, having a normal weight, able to move and do the things you like to do, getting a normal night's sleep, having a normal appetite, able to work, walk, do exercises without getting tired, and if the doctor says your blood tests are good, then you feel, yay, I'm fine, I'm healthy. And I guess if I didn't have any situations or any problems, I guess that would be my perception of having good health. I think some people are lucky because they are naturally connected to their body or connected to their health because they might have some good examples at home, maybe a brother or sister or a parent, an uncle or somebody who's really in good shape, and maybe they gave you some ideas about how to eat differently or how to keep your body in shape, exercising a certain way. But for the most part, people just go about life, unless, of course, they go to like the dentist, they brush their teeth at least once or twice or three times a day. They go to the dentist to see whether or not they have cavities. They go for cleanings, which I find interesting because you're smiling, you want to make sure your teeth look good. You want to make sure your breath doesn't smell bad. But there is a connection there. Well, if you don't take care of your teeth, your gums start to go bad, or you start to get cavities that can cause infections that could possibly turn into something really, really disastrous. Actually, over 100 years ago, I think that doctors, dentists came together and said, we got to teach these people how to have better dental hygiene. So, they actually take time from their day to make sure that their teeth are, being maintained, and they go for checkups to see whether or not their, mouth is healthy, because that can relate to other things. They say that people, if they don't take care of their teeth, it's possible they can have heart problems, they can have infections that can cause, I don't know, all sorts of terrible things in the body. So it's just a different way of looking at health through your mouth. I have a picture here of a junkyard. And I think that everybody who drives or owns a car, they have a certain responsibility to their car. They know to put oil in it. They know to put gas in it. They know to check the water. But this is a junkyard from many, many years ago. And a lot of cars that are like actually in really good shape don't run anymore because the people that own them don't take good care of them. But it's interesting, when it comes to your car, people actually spend more time taking care of their car than they do their bodies, where they end up with a problem that they didn't even know they had, like, whatever, a heart problem or a liver problem, a kidney problem. So they end up in a hospital, and it's not that people are bad, they just didn't take care of themselves, and it's sometimes people they don't do anything where they end up in a nursing home, which is kind of a drag because they had an opportunity to do the best that they could, but they didn't know that they could be something they're missing. We live in a world that is constantly invading our mind with stress. We all lived through 9/11, and, we all watch TV and see the news, and some of the news reports gets our body and our mind in a certain state of stress. And I don't know if you know anything about how the body works, but we have this fight or flight reflex that, long ago, nature made us that, like, let's say if a bear comes into the room, you go, and you run, you're supposed to like get your hormones going so your body your heart will beat fast and your muscles will do what it's supposed to do and you get the heck out of there. But could you imagine somebody watching news day after day, sometimes even be connected to their computer or their television or looking at the newspaper and reading these things that are just like making them so stressful? It has to change the tonation inside your central nervous system, which is designed to run everything in the body, where now you're just fight or flight. and it's not operating in its natural cycle. People sometimes are constantly thinking about problems or situations and reliving those things again and again and again and again. And that mental stress changes the way people's bodies operate. High blood pressure, people have sometimes higher, heartbeat. Their blood sugar can go off. We used to call that uptight back in the 60s. Sometimes people have interpersonal relationships that aren't going well. And this is a chronic thing, and it creates so much resistance. It just changes the way the body is processing information, processing its health. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. And also we're exposed to certain chemical stress. This is a picture of I think the 40s, where they used to spray DDT. When I was a kid in the 60s, we used to run behind these big smoke things, which was DDT, which is poison. It's crazy. Now, of course, they use Roundup, which they know for a fact it can cause problems in the human body, cause all sorts of toxins, which is terrible. We live in a world now where, because of the GMOs, our food is different. It's just different. And that's a chemical stress. That's a chemical stress that creates some kind of toxicity in our body. The apple on the left is like organic. The apple on the right is one that's GMOs. Of course, it looks twice the size, but I don't think it's as healthy as the one that would be. A lot of people eat processed foods, a lot of snack foods. These things are not natural. These aren't like eating a carrot or eating a piece of celery or an apple. Living on snacks or living on processed foods or sugars can't be good for the body, because it's just overload, especially the gluten. Gluten's created so many problems in people in terms of skin problems, with diabetes, with all sorts of things like, blood problems that most people are unaware of until finally someone says, you have too much gluten, stop eating it. And these diet sodas, I mean, come on, give me a break. It's ridiculous. And I find it's funny when someone will go and say, well, let me have some ice cream and let me have some of that and give me some diet soda. It's like, why? And of course, it's not terrible to have some alcohol or drink a glass of wine once in a while, but people sometimes indulge and they have too much, just like smoking pot or smoking too much cigarettes. It can't be good for the body. It's an accumulating toxins in the system. Of course, it's bad for the lungs, but it's bad for everything, blood pressure, heart, all that. And of course, there's, physical traumas, like car accidents. They could be sports injuries, where people have concussions, or sometimes their body gets racked, their spine gets pushed out of position. Now, with the advent of technology, we have, of course, an iPad, or we have a computer, or we have a cell phone, where people are completely defying the nature of the body by flexing their head too forward, sitting for too long. It's totally changing not only the body's natural alignment, but it's changing the neurological communications, because it's compromising the free flow just by position. Kids spend hours playing games on computers, on iPads. Kids are on phones doing things all day long. This is a picture of me when I was like 7 years old. I know nothing about chemical stress or, emotional stress or physical stress. But when I was a kid, I used to like to do all the active things. We lived near a park, in Casino Park, and I went sleigh riding when I was a kid. And my older brother, he said to me, listen, he says, you can go down the hill by yourself. He says, either go to the left or go to the right, but don't go in the middle, because there's a oak tree. And I pretty much went head down, straight forward, right into the oak tree, hit the oak tree. It like knocked me out. And it's okay. So I came out of it. I didn't have a concussion. I didn't have anything. But it was weird, because after that injury, I started to develop these weird infections, these boils and cysts. This is like one on my face that I used to have. I used to have one eye that was kind of slightly closed. And I didn't know anything. Well, I was just a kid. I was 7 years old. So from the time I was 7 to 17 years old, I kind of looked like that with these infections. And my parents used to take me to the doctor, and I used to get a lot of antibiotics and constant, I'd get them probably 2-3 times a year. I'd have these things lanced. Sometimes one doctor actually burnt one of them on my face. And it was unsightly, especially when you're a young kid and you're coming into the age where, you're talking to girls and you got this thing growing in your face. It was kind of weird. So of course, I didn't know. I didn't know anything. But I went to a chiropractor who actually took the time to take an x-ray and to show me, and he gave me an upper cervical adjustment. And he said, son, you need to come back. He showed me that the spine could go out of position and it could cause pressure on the central nervous system in such a way that it interferes with the life energy and the life flow that's natural to the body. Obviously, we know about the brain. The brain has all the messages that sends throughout the entire body, but the brain stem, which is at the very base of the skull, right at the top of the spine, of your top of your spinal cord, is like actually the first thing that comes into your spinal canal. And those messages, if they're interfered with, it can change everything. It can change the way your body is healing. It can change the way the body's operating. So a lot of people have disease, this we call dis-ease, like, less ease in the body. You have illness and aches and pains, injuries, bad posture, all sorts of things. If you get that part of that spine checked out by a chiropractor, they see what a spine should look like. Normally, we're looking at here a normal cervical spine from the side. And you could see at the very top of that picture, right underneath the L, is where the base of the brain is and the top of the brain stem. And then you can see at the spinal cord how it sits nicely inside the spinal canal. And if you look at the picture on the left, that's an X-ray of a spine having a nice C curve facing to the left. When you see a spine that's been out of alignment, the spine goes into a different pattern where the spinal cord itself is stretched. And you can see the spine itself looks like it's straight. Like most people think a straight spine is good, but not when it comes to your neck. And you can see that that spine, if it's been not corrected by chiropractic adjustments or over time changing your behavior, it goes into different phases, like a phase one where now there's some arthritis that develops in the middle of the spine and the spinal cord is beyond being stretched. It's being decreased in its ability to communicate those messages. And they say that people with forward head position for an extended period of time actually affects the cerebellum, and part of the cerebral cortex becomes slightly smaller, which is kind of scary. So, most people don't understand that there's communication from the brain to the body. And when we think about that, I guess the guillotine proved that from France. People die when you cut the head off. But really what happens is that a body is constantly in a state of recreation. Like it shows here, your nervous system's controlled coordinated growth since 9 months when you're in the mother's womb, from 2 cells to 100 trillion cells, some of them 250 different types, replacing 18 billion worn out cells every hour, blood pressure 120 over 80, heartbeat of 72 minutes. It's temperature. All of these things are being regulated by power and information that's coming from your brain to your body. And there's like a gazillion cells, a gazillion things that are going through that we call the natural organizing messages, controlling everything in the body. Your right is to be healthy and to be self-healing. Your body's designed to do that. But most people don't know that when those 2 cells come together, when mom and dad get together, and it forms a cluster of cells, the first thing that's formed is this neural tube, which forms the nodal cord, which forms the spinal cord, which here you can see a side view of the brain, and you can see the cerebellum, and you can see the spinal cord right at the very top where it connects to that brainstem. And everything that's represented in blue and everything that's represented in, now it looks white, it used to be yellow, that's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic systems that they have to work completely free from pressure. Now, when people have some kind of a misalignment at the very, very top of the spine, it affects flow of information coming down that spinal cord out to all the organs and all to the tissues. So this way they can't function in harmony. This is looking at the upper cervical spine. The top bone is your atlas. That's right beneath the occipital bone, which is the base of the skull. And that opening right through the middle is where that spinal cord and the brainstem sits. Now that's a spine that's in perfect alignment. This spinal bone, the way it shows and demonstrates slightly to the left, is a subluxation. Sub meaning less than normal, lux meaning less power, information flowing through that nerve system. And that information is being trapped. That's going to whatever organs, whatever cells. In my case, it caused my immune system not to function properly. In my case, it made the one eye, the left eye, slightly drooped. Looking at a spine from the side, you can see the vertebrae are separated by intervertebral discs. Most people, when they come to my office, they're always concerned about their discs. Their discs are like tires, and they wear out if the spine is out of position because of a lifestyle, because of something that they're doing, the way they sleep, the way they sit, accidents that they had, injuries that they had, stress that they're under. It causes and deforms the spine's alignment. Whereas now the spine, instead of being in its natural opening here, looking at it from the side, the nerve root comes right in between, right next to the disc. If the spine's out of alignment, it's actually the bone is putting tension and pressure on the nerve system, trapping information. And actually, they've proven that the information coming from the body back to the brain is reduced. It's reduced a slight percentage. And with the body's natural ability to help itself and heal itself and adapt, it's trying to regulate. So what it does is overcompensate. What we're looking at here is vertebrae that have been out of alignment for a long time. This is upside down, that haven't been adjusted, that developed arthritis. I used a simple analogy. The flow inside the spinal cord is like flow of water coming through a hose. And if someone was to drive their car over the hose or make a knot in the hose, there's like less water coming through. It's similar to like a river. If a river was flowing and suddenly there was a log jam, the log jam is holding the river from flowing. It's the same thing with cable. Either you're connected or you're disconnected. The one on the left shows someone watching a show. The one on the right shows no communication because the cable is out. There's many things that happen in people's lives. This is a cesarean birth of a baby, and I'm sure the doctor's being very gentle, but you can see the force that it puts at the top of the head and the top of the spine when they're actually trying to extract the baby from the mother's stomach, which is very interesting. There's a lot of pressure. That causes misalignments. That misalignments can cause problems in certain areas of upper cervical spine, eyesight, posture, breathing, digestion. I've had many young babies that came to me that had colic, kids that had problems swallowing, kids that had problems, breathing, certain things that had all to do with upper cervical, the upper part of the spine being affected. As the baby develops, you can see all these different things throughout its time in the womb. And you can see how the brainstem, the pons and medulla, and all of these different areas here all connect to all parts of the body that are running right from the base of the skull. And here's the human body and all the different systems that are affected by the central nervous system. So we have the muscular system, digestive system, reproductive system, breathing. All of these things are all connected. As a chiropractor, we sometimes try to relate people's problems to the parts of their spine, but quite often people will come with a neck pain and they don't understand how that is connected to their lower back, or they don't understand their lower back problem connected to their neck. So if you think about how we're interrelated, how the wiring inside our body is so beyond our understanding, you can understand that if a spinal bone is out of position, it can really get in the way of nature's way of healing. This is a book that describes how chiropractic helps and all the research that's been done over the years that gives people a more complete understanding without having to read through all the different books. And I always like to say the power of nature that made the body knows how to heal the body probably better than everything that we could think. Nature's so powerful, you can see how it's just grown around certain things. It knows how to adapt. Well, as humans, we have that same capacity. Our body is amazing, but we have to give a chance. We have to give it the opportunity. I like to think about the magnificence of our lives, and the things that we see. And we look out into the heavens, and we see all these different stars, and like think about Earth, and like how is it that the Earth revolves around the sun and the moon revolves around us, and everything's in perfect harmony. And it's interesting because if you look with an electron microscope into the body, it's almost like looking into the universe. It's held together by this intelligence that's far beyond our understanding. And I don't know how to describe it, but that I know that you have it in you, and I have it in me, and every living thing does. And chiropractic actually has a major premise. A universal intelligence is all matter and continually gives to it all its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence. Respecting and understanding that nature has more answers than we give it credit for gives people a better life. I think it gives them a more harmonious life. I think that people sometimes think everything is on the outside, but you have it on the inside. You're designed to be a self-healer. My office is basically something that happened all by accident. I think that the accident that me hitting the tree, sleigh riding, was an accident. And all the suffering that I went through with infections and whatever doctor visits was an unfolding for me. And my discovery of chiropractic and how it changed my life made me so excited to help people. And that's why I decided to become a chiropractic and dedicate myself to helping this community and anybody that, that has subluxation, misalignments of the spine. And I pretty much, that's all I have to say.